I think the first two speeches gave us a lot of food for thought. The third speech will be online from a speaker who is connected online. Let's connect to him. It is a pleasure. Can you hear us? Peter, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Peter Pavlovic is the study secretary of the Conference of European Churches, CEC. For over 2 decades, he served as the secretary of the European Christian Environmental Network, and he has engaged for many years in the topics of climate crisis and how to deal with this topic. Today, he will talk about the challenge of the Anthropocene on the doctrine of creation. So he will give us the theological perspective on this topic from a different Christian tradition. Peter, the floor to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. And thank you for having this opportunity to contribute to this debate, to this conference. I would be more than pleased to be in Volos in person and to use this conference also as an opportunity for discussing things, not only in a presenting, but unfortunately this is not possible. I will indeed turn attention to the theological aspect of this problem or the issue which we want to discuss today. And we'll turn attention to theology and relationship between theology and Anthropocene, and especially, of course, the teaching doctrine of creation. I would like to use the PowerPoint presentation. I hope it will be possible. Yes. My contribution starts with the basic premise. If the Anthropocene is indeed indicating the significant and perhaps even dramatic change in the relationship between collective humanity and the earth, it has implications also on theological reflection. If we take the theology as articulation of the nice Christian vision of the relationship in the triangle between God, world, and humanity. So if one part of this triangle, relationship between the world and the humanity, is somehow challenged, it cannot be without effect, without implication in other parts of the triangle. So theology has something to say and is implicated by all discussion about Anthropocene and its impacts. And not only that, what I would argue is that discussion of Anthropocene from a theological perspective help also to see the theology of creation in a broader perspective and in a relationship with other pillars of Christian teaching, and avoids to see eco-theology or green theology, theology of creation, purely as, let's call it, green issue. Theology of creation has a profound implication on other parts of theology as divine revelation, redemption, and this is what Anthropocene helps us also to articulate. I will outline my contribution in 4 sections or 4 parts. First, a couple of remarks about Anthropocene. Secondly, how do we see effects of Anthropocene on the food chain, internal paradoxes of Anthropocene, and the main part is the theology. Anthropocene has been proposed as a collective term defining or describing a new epoch of relationship between humanity and the earth, in which humanity is seen as a significant geological agent accelerating transformation of the Earth ecosystems. What is the point in Anthropocene, though, is not only to see the relationship between humanity and the Earth. The point is the scale and intensity of this relationship. It is indeed so that the interaction between humanity and the Earth is in place since human beings exist on the Earth. It is nothing new. But in Anthropocene, we talk about new quality of this relationship, new scale, new intensity. We talk about qualitative transformation of the Earth ecosystem. And even more, in some cases, we talk about irreversible changes in the relationship between humanity and the Earth. There has been a lot of discussion whether Anthropocene is appropriate name or not. From a scientific perspective, there have been pushed forward arguments why to use this term or not to use this term. But even if officially the International Commission on Stratigraphy, as well as Union of Geological Sciences, didn't accept the proposal to use Anthropocene as an official indication, official term, labeling the new era, geological era. Anthropocene has been taken as a helpful concept, which helps to describe unprecedented scale of human-driven economical, environmental change and the relationship between humanity and the Earth. In this context, it is helpful, I believe, to see the concept of Anthropocene in relationship with the concept of planetary boundaries. Planetary boundaries has emerged as a concept, as a system, which indicates the biophysical limits within which humanity can operate safely on the Earth. Currently, it is recognized there are 9 such boundaries. 9 such boundaries have been identified, which are important for proper operation of the Earth ecosystem, starting from climate change, biosphere integrity, land system change, ocean acidification, etc., etc. We have 9 of them. And important is that 6 out of these boundaries indicates that they have been transgressed, signaling that the Earth system is entering a period of growing instability. So this is what the Anthropocene is about. It is about dramatic change of the interrelationship between Earth and the humanity, and the challenge on the stability of the whole system. For the almost 12,000 of years, the geological period, which has been called Holocene, signified that there is a stability of the Earth ecosystem. Now we are indeed, as many science indicates, we are entering the new era where this stability is challenged. And it seems that Anthropocene and the concept of planetary boundaries are 2 interrelated concepts or attempts to describe the same reality. These boundaries cannot be addressed in isolation. Each of them, each of these 9 systems has a profound implications on the other one. So we have to look at them all together. And within this, within the context of Anthropocene, the integrity of the food chain is particularly vulnerable, and particularly vulnerable in this context of breaching of planetary boundaries. I would like to turn attention into one particular item when we talk about Anthropocene and food. It is not very usual to present in the theological presentation graphs, but let's look at some of them. And this is indeed indicates what is happening and what has happened with food production in the last 50 to 100 years. In the second half of 20th century, thanks to application of chemicals in agriculture, has been dramatically increased production of agriculture products. We see it maize, wheat. We can look at the others as well, rice, potatoes. Impacts have been seen also in a dramatic increase of animal heads, as we see on the other graphs. All this is related with the and correlated with the increase of use of chemicals, second half of 20th century. And all this is correlated with the dramatic increase of population on the earth. Now, we see that the use of chemicals, increase of agriculture production, and population development, they are closely related. And they are even related with each other through the positive feedback loop. So increase of chemicals causes increase of food. This causes increase of population, which increase of population require, again, increase of food, etc., etc. Now, to this feedback comes one more item, one more characteristic sign, and this is that increased use of chemicals has not only positive impacts, but has also significant unintended consequences. While these substances have contributed to productivity gains and to more agricultural products, soil degradation, water pollution, biodiversity loss, and disruption of local ecosystems have been closely linked with the increase of use of chemicals. Whether this system and further increase of use of chemicals is sustainable, this is an open question. So with this illustration, we see that Anthropocene serves as a framework for understanding how human anthropogenic interventions, particularly on the food system, are altering Earth system dynamics and challenge its stability. So we see the double-edged nature of chemical reliance of agriculture. What was initially appearing as a solution of food scarcity now poses new risk to food system and its resilience. This leads to some paradoxes of the Anthropocene, which I would like to note in this respect as well. And the most relevant, or the sign which should raise our attention, is that although in Anthropocene the humanity becomes a geological agent impacting ecosystems, at the same time we see that human beings are increasingly alienated from the natural and world they shape. The Anthropocene is marked by a growing disconnect between humans and the natural world. Beyond immediate care for utilitarian use of nature, there is less and less interest, we can say in general, of people about the nature. And once again, we have a good example of that. The climate conference, Paris Climate Conference, and general agreement that increase of temperature should not go beyond 1.5 or 2 degrees is one side of a coin. The second side of a coin is that economic and political interests does not seem supporting that this target of reducing increase of temperature will be reached. So on the one hand, we see what we want to do, what would be necessary to do. On the other side, we see resistance and not much interest to follow what needs to be done. So one of defining system of Anthropocene, we can perhaps say as well that although humanity exerts an unprecedented influence over planetary system, it simultaneously loses interest in the very system upon which it depends. And once again, this can be very well illustrated with another concept of the Earth Overshoot Day. World Overshoot Day quantifies the point in each calendar year where the humanity's ecological resource exceeds the capacity of the Earth and to regenerate the resources within one year. And we see how does it change over the period of last 50 years. If in 1971, it was Earth Overshoot Date. It was in end of the December. At the beginning of 20th century, it is already in middle of the year. And for 2025, it means this year, it is projected that it will be June 5. So it means that as a humanity, we need resources of almost 2 or at least 1.5 Earth ecosystems that are supporting our way of life as it is on the Earth. And the trend is very clear. It continues. We demand more and more. The Earth Overshoot Date is shifting to the one side and not to that one as it should be. In sum, the Anthropocene is defined not only by the scale of human impacts, but also by a cognitive and cultural distancing from the natural system. And Anthropocene is also characterized by increasing destabilization of the system. And this paradox of control without care presents a radical challenge for both ecological ethics and theological reflections. Now, when we come to, with this introduction to theology, Anthropocene offers an opportunity to see theology of creation in a close relationship, mutual impacts and interaction with at least two other big pillars of a Christian theology, and it is divine revelation and redemption. It allows to see care for creation, theology of creation, as indeed important part of theology and not as something added and on the side of the interest. I will suggest in the next part 3 areas where Anthropocenes offer a new opportunity to see the relationship of creation theology with other parts of Christian teaching. First of all, Anthropocene as related to justice and creation of justice, this is an important part, and it is very often discussed how care for creation, theology of creations relate to eco-justice. I will not spend much time in that, just indicate that this is indeed not forgotten and it is part of an interest. But more than that, the question of sustainability and prosperity is other significant part which does not yet receive proper attention. Sustainability has to be seen beyond its attention on environment only. Sustainability is also part of economic perspective and economic thinking. Pursuit of economic prosperity, as we observe in the world today, is very much related to creation of debt. Much of the material prosperity nowadays we enjoyed has been get through accrual of serious debt. And the current drive for prosperity is not possible to sustain without growth of monetary depth. And one of the questions, and the principal question, which theology has to raise in this respect, is whether this economic growth can be indeed sustained in a finite world. Can economic growth be infinite in a finite world? Can we live without the increasing desire to have more and more? And the ethical question, as well as theological question, has to be raised, what is enough? How can we live without demanding our wish to have more and more? So in this respect, theological significance of growth and depth has to be raised and has to be put into proper relationship. The growth for growth's sake must be challenged both economically as well as theologically. The creation of depth is not only related to economic indicators. Growth of depth, as we have seen from the concept of the Earth overshoot date, is also related to ecological depths. For classical theological teaching, this drive for more and more has been indeed labeled as something deadly. And perhaps it is time to raise once again the question, what is enough? How can we live and how should we, how do we need to live in the world of finite resources? In the classical theology, the temperance and modesty have been virtues which have been very much appreciated. They belong to fourth classical virtues. In the context of Anthropocene, we see that this temperance and modesty is certainly something what is neglected. And disregarding the limits has increasingly impacting on life and the whole. This is closely related to assessment of theological significance of freedom and responsibility, and what are the limits and ramifications of freedom. How can we use our freedom not only to misuse the freedom, but how to use freedom responsibly and being able to say where are the limits and where is enough and what is enough. The third aspect which I'm suggesting as to inspect more properly, which is related if we want to see Anthropocene from a theological perspective, is the question of time. In Anthropocene, the question of time is no longer abstract. It is an existential question. How do we interpret the time in a theological perspective? And how do we relate question of time and how do we use our time, which is given to us by God, from a theological perspective and in a theological asking? This is closely related to studies and recent theological discovering of theology of Apostle Paul, and especially aspect of theology of creation which can be discovered in Paul's letters. The appointed time has grown very short. This is what Paul writes in a letter to Corinthians. And indeed, in Anthropocene, we see that the question of time, the question of act urgently and not to expect that something will be solved on its own, is more and more at the table. This is indicated also by Paul's theology. It is often, and by several theologians and several scholars studying theology of Apostle Paul, it is indicated that the terms and terminology like contraction of time, the time that remains, and the focus of the interval between now and the end are key for understanding of Paul's theology and especially Paul's eschatology. And even more, Apostle Paul, is suggesting that his eschatology is not focused on the end, what happens in the end, but in between, on the time between now and the end. And this time, this period should be filled with the transformation. This is a key aspect to which invites Apostle Paul. So in this respect, creation and the world as a such, as a created, is itself an eschatological category. Despite the critique of the natural order, Apostle Paul never dismisses creation. Rather, he looks at the creation as to be understood through eschatological transformation, as the transformation that needs to happen between now and the end. In this respect, ecological concerns becomes inseparable from eschatological and anthropological reflections. And care for creation is not only a secondary or optional theological concern, but is something which is fundamentally intertwined with our care for others and for our relationship with God. And in this respect, we can also see that the question of time have ethical implications, and time has become a morally relevant factor. How do we use the time between now and the end has significant impacts of not only our individual lives, but on the life of the Earth system and the humanity as such. This eschatological perspective is something fundamental to care for creation, saying that the future is not only something which is ahead of us, but it is already shaped by the choices we make now. And the time that remains, as Apostle Paul insists, is the only time we truly have. And with this, we can come to conclusion, which can be perhaps formulated in 3 points. The theological reflection of creation, as well as reflection about an interaction of theology with creation, has to go together with themes of redemption and divine revelation. And in the context of Anthropocene, there are new opportunities how to see these relationships. Secondly, theology may contribute to insights how humanity can and should perhaps navigate through the current crisis with responsibility, hope, and transformative action. And last but not least, we may perhaps conclude and to say that theology can indeed contribute meaningfully to the ongoing conversation about the future of the earth and the future of humanity within it. Thank you.
Ευχαριστούμε τον Peter Pavlovic για αυτή την
very much Dr. Pavlovic for this very well documented and very well analyzed speech and the connection between the Anthropocene and the theology and its eschatological perspective. We have already depleted 1.5 times the resources of our planet. And this year, this date will be even earlier, on the 5th of May. This was a very critical point. We have time for only 1 or 2 questions before giving the floor to the next speaker. Do we have any question or remark? So, microphone to the lady here. Thank you very much. My question is the following. You have said that this era and its effects also affect theology. Does this mean that theology should transform its human study, anthropology, since the human and its relation and their relationship with the environment do change?
I believe that theology, and especially care for creation, is genuine part of theology, and it has to be strengthened and articulated in a perspective of new discoveries, also from science, especially natural sciences. This is one aspect. The second, I believe that theology of creation should not be seen as totally independent in the corpus of the whole theology, an independent part. And this is where I see a challenge also for theology, how to integrate or develop more interrelationship between what do we mean by theology of creation, what do we mean by human redemption, and how theology of creation relates to discovering and recognizing how God is acting in the earth, through the earth and through humanity.
Hi, thank you very much. It just hears me. Okay. Hi, thank you very much. My name is Chris Durante. I'm also a theologian. In one part of your talk, you mentioned the fact that basically, politically, we didn't have the will to pursue the climate accords and those sorts of things, right? We have knowledge, but we don't pursue it. Socrates spoke about this as akrasia, or glatonos to Plato, which is having knowledge, but not having the will to actually pursue the good. We can know the good, but not pursue it. So that knowledge is insufficient. We need willpower, and we need faith in that goodness. Given that humanity has fallen into this state of akrasia, do you think the church has also fallen into this state of akrasia, in the sense of, do you think that the global church has lost its faith and its own ability to transfigure and transform society and actually pursue the good as a collective body?
Yeah, this is a big question. What we can see and what we can observe is that care for creation as part of theological thinking has been, for a long period, let's call it sleeping in the theology. Only in recent years, maybe 20, 30 years, has care for creation developing gradually more and more attention. It doesn't mean that this is something very new in the theology. If we go to church fathers and to previous parts of the theological corpus, we discover a lot of interesting things. But this has been not either taken seriously or being not taken with the relevance. So it is, we live in a rediscovering also all resources. So I think the theology is still not in that point as it should be. But there is a potential where theology can do a lot of good things in integrating care for creation with other parts, significant part, and the relevant parts, important parts of the theology. This is one thing where there is a potential and I think hope for better days to come. But also in the other thing is this may equip theology for more efficient dialogue with the natural science, which in this respect is relevant. And as far as I can see, theology is still not being able to be full part of this dialogue with the natural science and actor which can contribute fully in such a way as it should be to presenting the arguments which are relevant for responding to challenges of Anthropocene and climate change and other challenges we are facing nowadays.
Ευχαριστούμε τον Peter Pavlovic.
Thank you very much to Dr. Pavlovic for this wonderful presentation.